I interviewed Susan Yu, who is from China.
And I'm Brittany Salyers, and I interviewed my roommate, Kari O'Boyle, from Ireland.
Okay, so for learning, I learned that Susan uses offloading as a main learning strategy, and she found that it's easiest for her to learn if she compares her own notes to her professor's notes and sees if they match or not. And she finds it's a very effective way to commit information to memory. And another way that she remembers information is through memorization, especially through rehearsal.
And then Kari is actually pretty much the same. We learned that there wasn't much of a cultural barrier there. She also uses offloading as a main learning strategy, kind of like a sifter. She takes the notes in class and then on her own, and then goes back through to determine the main points. She also uses memorization and rehearsal. Just the basic strategies, really.
All right, so for motivation, I found out that Susan was intrinsically motivated by classes that were related to her major because she found that she was passionate about what she was learning because that was her goal, was to use that major for her own life. And she found that she was not motivated for classes that were difficult and were not related to her major. She was also extrinsically motivated by her parents and her friends, and I've also found that she had a positive self-image bias because she attributed her success to mostly internal factors as well as low task difficulty and hard work. And she attributed her failures mostly to external factors, and that took place in the form of her professor, because she said that her professors lacked organization and weren't understandable, and that was the reason that she was not doing well in her classes. And she also has an incremental view of intelligence because she believes that her success depends on the amount of effort that she gives.
And for Kari, she was very extrinsically motivated to succeed in her internship, or so that she could succeed for her internship at Moy Park, which is actually like this really prestigious food processing company. And she's also very motivated by her family. So it doesn't always come internally, but she definitely wants to get a good job. So she's also pretty intrinsically motivated as well. She has an incremental view of intelligence, so which she assumed was cultural, actually. She assumed everybody was just motivated by trying their very hardest. And then she finds more hands-on learning to help her a little bit more. So I guess her favorite course that she talked about had her designing a product, and she could follow it from start to finish with the actual process that they would go through. So she really liked that. She also found finance to be horrible because it was not intrinsically motivating, and because she couldn't identify its applicability, and it seemed so impossibly difficult. So it wasn't achievable, and she didn't value it very much, so she wasn't motivated. On the other hand, yeah, that's pretty much
it. So for what we learned about how people learn in general is that in the classroom, we have a controlled and engaging and enriching learning environment so that we feel motivated to learn. And also it's important to have a deep understanding of the context that we learn rather than having just a shallow surface learning of multiple topics. We delve deep into specific topics so there's a very deep understanding of material and that you actually absorb it and retain it longer. And also it's important that you feel a connection between yourself and the teacher. So it's important that a student feels that they're cared about by the teacher makes them more motivated to learn. And Kari, her roommate, has a quote about her ideal teacher who really moved her. Quote, "My favorite teacher was in secondary school. She was quite strict and quite pushy, but she was good. Even people that didn't like the subject tried hard so that they could please her. I would like to be a teacher like her." So also, like, we learned about modeling. If a teacher is a good model, then they should help motivate you. And if you feel like you're cared about by your teacher, they're more likely to serve as a model for you. Outside the classroom, we saw that there's individualized strategies that help us retain, recall, and apply information learned in class. So that's very individualized, like your strategies for learning. And we also learned that culture isn't a main factor in motivation or learning that we've observed. However, many cultures provide similar factors for motivation and learning. For example, Susan and Kari both managed to remember information by memorization and offloading, and they come from completely two different countries. Kari comes from Ireland, and Susan comes from China, and so we realized that just because you're from different sides of the world doesn't mean that you don't share similar strategies for learning.
As for implications for teaching, we suggested that teachers should incorporate different learning techniques when instructing, such as something visual or some kind of audio, kind of like you guys do with the funny pictures or the references to the TV shows. It really makes it more valuable, I guess you could say, because it draws your attention in and it makes it relatable. So an example that we actually had was the use of PowerPoints plus hands-on activities plus flowcharts and labs and worksheets. So for a science class, like my AP Bio teacher used to teach us photosynthesis, she first taught us the information and then on a PowerPoint, and then she had us put together a flowchart of photosynthesis ourselves, which really forced us to learn and apply the information as we saw fit. And then she also made us spit back the information on a worksheet. We also agreed that teachers should persuade students to be intrinsically motivated, like similar childlike passions, and increase applicability. So they should have a passion for the subject via visually appealing to the class, making slides visually appealing to the class, and making the child feel at home so that they're comfortable to open up with their opinions and use personal examples. The teacher should.
As an extra thing that we both realized as we collaborated was an approach to language barrier. And working with Susan, because English is not her first language, I really had to simplify the questions in the interview so that she could understand it better, because it was a topic that she wasn't really used to talking about in English. So I really had to minimize the number of words in order for us to reach across that language barrier.
Conversely, with Kari, it was quite interesting that it was conversely, because there was also this kind of language barrier in our lingos, and for her, I had to actually decrease the wording as I was reading through. Increase. Sorry. I had to increase the wording to help her better understand what was being said in kind of her own lingo.
Yeah, so we noticed that the people that we interviewed were the complete opposite in terms of language barrier, because Kari's first language was English. It was just the lingo.
Yep.
And for me and Susan, it was that English was not her first language. So we had to go beyond really sophisticated vocabulary.
Mm-hmm. Which was a cool observation that we wanted to share.
Yeah. So thank you for watching.
Bye.